The parking structure after midnight. My name is Marcus Thompson. I'm 32 years old, and I work as a night shift supervisor at the downtown Parkway parking structure in Kansas City, Missouri. And the night I watched a coordinated crime unfold in the concrete levels beneath my feet is the night I realized that darkness and rain are the perfect cover for people who have planned something terrible. Before I begin, if you ever park in a parking garage late at night, stay alert and stay on your phone. Keep listening, because what I witnessed between the levels of a concrete building taught me that sometimes being in an enclosed space with other people means you're trapped with them, not safe around them. I started working at the downtown Parkway structure about 5 years ago. It was a steady job, good pay, decent benefits. My responsibilities were to monitor the security cameras, check the parking areas during my shift, respond to any issues, and make sure the structure was secure. The structure had 8 levels. Levels 1 through 4 were above ground. Levels 5 through 8 were underground. I spent most of my time in the security office located on level 2 watching the monitors, but I also did rounds every couple of hours to make physical presence known. The job was usually uneventful. People parked their cars. They came back and got them. They paid at the machines or through the app. Occasionally, someone would lock their keys in their car, and I'd help them call a locksmith. Occasionally, someone would have a medical issue, and I'd call an ambulance. But most nights were quiet. Most nights, I'd sit in the office, watch the monitors, and wait for my shift to end. Wednesday night started normal enough. I came in at 11 p.m. I did a quick walkthrough of all 8 levels. Everything looked secure. The parking structure was maybe 30% full, which was typical for a Wednesday evening. Most of the cars were on the upper levels, the above-ground levels where people feel safer. The underground levels were mostly empty. I always found it a bit eerie down there. The concrete, the fluorescent lights, the echo of footsteps and sounds. But it was part of the job. I settled into the security office around 11:30. I made a cup of coffee. I opened my book. I checked the monitors one more time. All 8 levels were visible on the screens. All 8 levels showed the same thing. Empty, quiet, still. Nothing that required my attention. I sat back in my chair and opened my book. Around 1 in the morning, the storm rolled in. I could hear it even from the security office on level 2. The sound of rain hitting the concrete above, the rumble of thunder, the distant flashes of lightning visible through the small window of the office. The weather was supposed to be bad that night. The forecast had mentioned a severe thunderstorm warning, flash flood potential, heavy winds. But I was inside a concrete structure. The storm didn't really affect me. It didn't affect the building. It just meant it would be slower than usual. People wouldn't want to walk to their cars in heavy rain and lightning. I was 3 chapters into my book when I noticed movement on one of the monitors. Level 3. A car pulling into a space. It was a dark sedan, maybe a Honda or a Toyota. I couldn't see the license plate clearly from the camera angle. The driver got out. It was a man. Tall, dark clothing. He wasn't carrying anything. No shopping bags, no briefcase, nothing. He just got out of his car, locked it, and started walking toward the stairwell on level 3. Nothing unusual about that. People park and leave all the time. Maybe he was meeting someone. Maybe he'd left something upstairs. Maybe he was just restless and wanted to walk around. I made a mental note of the car's location, but didn't think much of it. I went back to my book. About 15 minutes later, another car pulled into level 3. A blue sedan, different from the first car. The driver, a woman this time, got out. She was carrying a purse. She locked her car. She started walking toward the stairwell, but she was walking in the opposite direction from where the man had gone. She was walking toward the east stairwell, while the man had gone toward the west stairwell. I watched her on the monitor. She reached the stairwell door and opened it. She started to climb. I expected to see her exit the structure or go to another level, but she didn't. She stopped on level 4, opened the door, and entered the main parking area. Then she stopped walking. She stood there. She seemed to be looking around, looking for something, or looking for someone. I found that slightly unusual, but still not concerning enough to warrant any action. Maybe she was looking for someone's car. Maybe she was meeting a friend. I watched for another minute. The woman was still standing there, not moving, just waiting. Then the first man, the one from the dark sedan, appeared on the level 4 monitor. He was coming from the west stairwell. He started walking toward the woman. The woman saw him. She didn't move. She didn't run. She didn't call for help. She just stood there waiting for him to approach. When he reached her, they talked for a few seconds. Then they both got in the dark sedan together. The car started. The car drove out of level 4 and toward the exit ramp. Within seconds, the car had exited the structure and was gone. I sat there for a moment. Something about what I'd just watched felt coordinated, felt planned. The man had arrived first. The woman had arrived second. They'd met on level 4. They'd left together. Now, none of that was technically against the rules. People met people in parking structures all the time. Friends, family, dating, business meetings. It could have been anything. But something about it felt off. The way they'd met without hesitation. The way they'd seemed to be expecting each other. The way they'd left without stopping at a payment machine. The way the woman had seemed to be waiting. I made a note in the log. 2 vehicles on level 3. Dark sedan left via ramp at approximately 1:35 a.m. with female passenger picked up from level 4. I noted the description of both vehicles and the time. It was probably nothing, but it was good practice to document anything unusual. For the next hour and a half, nothing happened. The rain continued. The thunder continued. The lightning flashed periodically. But the parking structure remained quiet and still. A few more cars came and went. All of them seemed normal. People came in. People left. Standard parking structure activity. Around 3 in the morning, I heard something that made me alert. It wasn't on the monitors. It was coming from within the building itself. A sound. A shout. It came from somewhere below me. From one of the lower levels. From the underground levels. It sounded like someone yelling. Someone calling for help. Or someone yelling in anger or frustration. I couldn't tell which. I stood up immediately. I looked at all the monitors. I was trying to find the source of the sound. But the camera angles on the underground levels weren't great. They showed the parking spaces and the main drive lanes, but not every corner. Not every stairwell. I couldn't pinpoint where the sound had come from. I decided to do an immediate inspection. I left the office. I took the elevator down to level 5, the first underground level. The elevator doors opened to silence. Complete silence. The rain was barely audible from this far underground. The only sound was the hum of the ventilation system. I stepped out of the elevator. I walked around the parking area. Nothing. No sign of anyone. No sign of any disturbance. All the cars were parked and still. I went down to level 6. Same thing. Empty. Quiet. Nothing unusual. I went down to level 7. Still nothing. I was about to go back up when I heard it again. The sound. A shout. A voice calling out. And this time it sounded like it was coming from level 8. The lowest level. The most isolated level. I took the stairs down to level 8. The stairwell was concrete. My footsteps echoed as I descended. The air got colder the deeper I went. The lighting seemed dimmer, even though it was the same fluorescent lights as every other level. I pushed through the stairwell door at level 8 and stepped into the underground level. Level 8 was nearly empty. Only about 5 cars parked in the entire level. The rest was just concrete, just open space. The acoustic quality down there was strange. Sound seemed muffled, seemed distant. I walked out into the main area and called out. I said, "This is security. Is anyone here? Does anyone need help?" For a moment, nothing. Then I heard a voice. It came from the far end of the level, the end that extended under the street, the deepest part of the structure. A woman's voice. She said, "Help me." She said, "Please help me." I immediately started walking toward the sound. I was moving quickly but trying to stay alert. I was trying to figure out what was happening. Was she hurt? Was her car broken down? Was she locked out of her vehicle? I couldn't tell from her voice. I could only hear the distress. As I got closer to the far end of the level, I started to see something. There were people. Multiple people. A man was standing near a car. 2 other people, both men, were standing near him, and there was a woman on the ground. She was on the concrete. She was clearly hurt or struggling. One of the men had his hand on her arm. I stopped walking. I was still maybe 50 feet away. I could see the situation, but I was far enough away to assess it without being directly involved. And what I was seeing was not a car breakdown. What I was seeing was not an accident. What I was seeing was 3 men and 1 woman in what looked like a dangerous situation. A situation where the woman was in distress, and the men seemed to be the cause of it. I pulled out my phone. I started to dial 911. The moment I did, one of the men looked up. He saw me. He said something to the other men. They all looked in my direction. The men started moving. They were moving toward me. Moving fast. Moving like they were about to do something they didn't want me to see continue. I ran. I turned and ran back toward the stairwell. I was running from 3 men who were apparently engaged in some kind of crime against the woman on the ground. I reached the stairwell door. I went through it. I started up the stairs. I could hear the men following me. I could hear their footsteps on the concrete stairs. I could hear them moving up behind me. I went up 1 level. I went up another. I was trying to get to level 6 where the elevator was. I could hear the men still behind me. I was moving as fast as I could, but I wasn't trained for combat. I wasn't a young man anymore. I was 32, and I worked security at a parking structure. I wasn't equipped to fight 3 attackers. I reached level 6. I burst through the stairwell door. I ran toward the elevator. I could hear the stairwell door open behind me. The men were right behind me. I pressed the elevator button. The elevator was coming. I could see the light above the door. It was on level 3. It was moving down toward me. But the men were getting closer. They were maybe 20 feet away. The elevator doors opened. I jumped inside. I pressed the button to close the doors. I pressed the button for level 2. The doors were closing. The men were getting closer. One of them put his arm out to stop the doors, but they were already closing. They closed on his arm. He pulled it back with a shout. The doors sealed shut. The elevator started moving. I was in the elevator. I was safe for the moment. I was on my phone with 911. I was telling the operator that there was a crime in progress on level 8 of the downtown Parkway structure. I was telling her that there was a woman who needed help immediately. I was telling her that 3 men had apparently assaulted her. I was telling her that they had chased me into the stairwell. I was telling her that I was in the elevator moving toward level 2. The operator was asking for more details. I was giving her everything I could. The elevator was moving slowly, painfully slowly. It felt like it was taking forever to move from level 6 to level 2. I was scared that the men would figure out how to stop the elevator. I was scared that they would pry open the doors and get inside with me. But the elevator reached level 2. The doors opened. I ran out into the hallway. I ran toward the security office. I locked the door behind me. I was safe. I was inside the office. The cameras were all around me. I could see every level on the monitors. The 911 operator was telling me that police were being dispatched. She was telling me that multiple units were en route. She was telling me to stay safe and to remain on the line. I said okay. I was watching the monitors. I was waiting to see what would happen next. On the monitor for level 6, I could see the stairwell door open. The 3 men emerged. They were moving quickly. They were moving toward the elevator. But the elevator was no longer there. It was on level 2 with me. They would have to wait for it to come back down. I could see them looking at each other, calculating something, making a decision. Then on the monitor for level 8, I saw something that made my heart drop. The woman was standing up. She was moving away from where the crime had happened. She was moving toward a car. She was getting into a car. And then, impossibly, one of the men from level 6 appeared on the level 8 monitor. He had taken the stairs down. He had gotten into a car with the woman, and the car was starting to move. I told the operator what was happening. I told her the victim seemed to be leaving with one of the assailants. I told her there might be a vehicle leaving the structure. The operator said she was relaying the information to the police. She said they were approaching the structure now. She said to stay in the office and to monitor the situation. I watched the monitor as the car drove up the exit ramp. On another monitor, I could see the car approach the exit gate. The gate arms came up. The car passed through. And then it was gone. Gone from the structure. Gone from my view. Within 2 minutes, police cars were arriving. I could see them pulling into the structure through the external cameras. Officers were coming out. They were running into the building. I heard them on the radio through my office. They were coordinating, looking for the crime scene, looking for victims, looking for suspects. I opened my office door. I went out to meet them. I directed them to the stairwell. I told them about level 8. I told them about what I'd seen. The officers went down. Multiple officers with flashlights and radios. I waited in the office watching the monitors. It took them about 15 minutes to search level 8 thoroughly. When they came back up, the lead officer came directly to the security office. He asked me everything I'd seen. I told him. I told him about the woman arriving first. I told him about the man arriving second. I told him about the meeting on level 4. I told him about the woman calling for help from level 8. I told him about the 3 men and the assault I'd witnessed. I told him about the woman apparently leaving with one of the men. The officer seemed frustrated. He said they'd found evidence of a struggle on level 8. They'd found a purse. They'd found signs of blood on the concrete. But they hadn't found the woman. And by the time they got the information about the car leaving, the vehicle was already gone. They'd put out an alert for the vehicle description, but they didn't have a license plate. They didn't have full identifying information. The officer asked if I had camera footage. I said yes. I told him I could provide him with all the footage from the night. I could show him the woman arriving. I could show him the man arriving. I could show him the woman meeting the man on level 4. I could show him the confrontation on level 8. The officer said they would need all of that. He said they would need to take the recording equipment as evidence. They did. They took the recording devices. They took my statement. They asked me about any distinguishing features of the vehicles. I gave them everything I remembered. The color, the general make, the direction they'd gone when leaving the structure. The officer said they would follow up. He said they would review all the footage. He said they would try to locate the vehicle and the woman. But as the officers were leaving, one of them said something to me that I've never forgotten. He said the woman might not want to be found. He said based on the scenario, the woman might not be a victim in the way I thought she was. He said sometimes what looks like a crime is actually something more complicated. He said the way the woman had met the man, the way she'd seemed to be waiting for him, the way she'd apparently left with one of the assailants. Those things suggested that she might be part of whatever was happening, that she might not need rescuing. I didn't understand what he meant at the time. I still don't fully understand it now. But what I understand now that I didn't understand then is that the parking structure wasn't a place of random chance. The woman arriving, the men showing up, the confrontation on level 8. All of it had been orchestrated. All of it had been planned. And I had witnessed only a small part of a much larger operation. In the following weeks, the police found the vehicle. They found it abandoned in a rural area about 30 miles outside the city. But they never found the woman. They never found the men. They found evidence of criminal activity. They found evidence that something bad had happened. But they never found the people involved. The department offered me the option to stop working at the structure. They said I'd witnessed a crime. They said the people involved knew who I was. They said I might be in danger. But I didn't want to leave. I wanted to understand what had happened. I wanted to be able to protect other people if something like that happened again. So I stayed. I went back to work. I watched the monitors more carefully. I documented every person who seemed unusual, every car that seemed out of place, every interaction that felt coordinated. And I became hyper-vigilant in a way I'd never been before. But here's what haunts me about that night. Here's what still keeps me awake sometimes. I never found out what actually happened. I never found out if the woman was a victim or a perpetrator. I never found out what the 3 men were trying to do. I never found out where that car went or what happened to its occupants. And most importantly, I still don't know if by chasing off those men, by getting in the elevator and running, I actually helped anyone, or if I made things worse. What if the woman needed me to stay? What if she needed me to keep those men focused on me so she could escape? What if my running made them panic and made them take her away faster? What if by calling the police, by forcing them to flee, I actually put her in more danger? These are the questions I ask myself. The parking structure is quieter now. After that night, more security was added. More cameras, more patrols, more presence. The structure doesn't feel as isolated anymore. But the underground levels still feel dark to me. they still feel dangerous. Every time I go down there, I think about that night. I think about the sounds echoing off the concrete. I think about the woman's voice calling for help. I think about the men chasing me through the stairwell. And I've learned that darkness and rain don't just hide the weather. They hide people's intentions. They hide crimes. They hide victims. They hide dangers that you might otherwise see coming. And being in a parking structure, being in a concrete enclosed space, doesn't make you safe. It makes you trapped. It makes you isolated. It makes you vulnerable to anyone who understands the space better than you do. So if you ever find yourself in a parking structure late at night, trust your instincts. If something feels off, if you see behavior that seems coordinated or planned, if you hear sounds that don't belong, don't ignore them. Don't assume it's nothing. Don't assume that the people around you are innocent. Get to a safe place. Call for help. Make yourself visible to security or to other people, because what I witnessed in those 8 levels of concrete was something darker than I could have imagined. And the worst part is, I still don't know exactly what it was. I still don't know if justice was served. I still don't know if the woman was saved or if she was taken. I still don't know what happened to those 3 men, or where they went, or if they're still out there doing the same thing to other people. All I know is that I was there. I saw something terrible. I tried to help. And it wasn't enough. The parking structure that I thought was my place of work, my place of responsibility, became a place of mystery and darkness. And now every time I hear the echo of footsteps in the stairwell, every time I see an unusual meeting on the monitors, every time I notice people acting in a coordinated way, I'm transported back to that night, back to level 8. Back to a woman's voice calling for help from the depths of a concrete structure, while rain fell somewhere above on the city streets. And I wonder still if there's anything I could have done differently. Anything that would have changed the outcome. Anything that would have made the difference between a tragic ending and a happy one. Because sometimes, in this world, you witness something dark, and all the security cameras and protocols in the world can't protect you from the knowledge that you saw it happen, that you tried to stop it, and that you'll never know if it actually made any difference at all.